Evidence secured at marker 4. Advise command we are holding the scene.
Copy that. It's getting heavier out here.
With the Pima County Sheriff's Office in Tucson in the national spotlight these days as they continue searching for Nancy Guthrie, they're also responding to some discrepancies reported in the sheriff's own past work history.
The lead law enforcement official hunting for this missing woman just got caught in a deception. He did not falsify evidence about her disappearance, but rather concealed his own past, guarding this truth for over 40 years. Unearthed paperwork arrived this week proving commanders ousted him from his previous precinct under conditions that absolutely shatter the credibility of every move he makes, directing this active crime scene. Confronted by journalists regarding these findings, he refused to issue a denial. He offered no justifications. He uttered exactly 6 words. Hearing those specific 6 words reveals exactly why this current investigation faces severe operational jeopardy. Before unearthing what the Arizona Republic uncovered in those files, we must evaluate our current standing in this active manhunt, bypassing the rudimentary details. To avoid rehashing the timeline you already know, 39 agonizing days have passed. Intruders snatched 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie from her Tucson residence in the Catalina foothills during the pre-dawn darkness of February the 1st, leaving her confirmed blood smeared across the patio. The perpetrator tore down the surveillance system. Her cardiac monitor failed permanently at 2:28 in the morning. Security feeds captured a masked assailant holding a weapon and hauling a Walmart backpack. Detectives scrutinized thousands of hours of footage, fielding tens of thousands of leads alongside a $1 million family bounty, plus an additional $100,000 incentive from the FBI. 39 days later, prosecutors have indicted no one. Authorities concealed the suspect list, signaling no immediate capture, while the local commander coordinating this entire operation, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, recently assured NBC News audiences that his deputies rapidly approach a breakthrough.
So, Sheriff, it's been 30 days since Nancy Guthrie went missing. Are investigators any closer to finding the suspect or suspects?
I think the investigators are definitely closer.
He repeats that identical sentence constantly, using it as a shield since the second week. He provides no deadlines. He gives zero details, claiming they merely edge nearer. Keeping that grim reality in focus, scrutinize the bombshell the Arizona Republic dropped this week. Grasping the exact contents of these hidden files instantly changes how you view every press briefing and tactical decision in this case. Journalists at the Arizona Republic secured authentic agency records, bypassing internet whispers, unverified tipsters, and amateur sleuth theories to acquire hard evidence. These exact files expose Chris Nanos, the top official of Pima County, the confident figure headlining broadcasts on NBC, Fox News, and The Today Show, the commanding voice dictating the narrative since the inaugural media update, as an officer forced to surrender his previous badge. He did not step down voluntarily, nor did he seek new opportunities, but faced termination under specific conditions he successfully obscured throughout his entire decades-long public career. Are you wondering how a cop hides this for over 40 years? By building a flawless facade, Chris Nanos projects a professional history mirroring the ultimate law enforcement success story. He invested decades patrolling Tucson. He climbed the operational ladder relentlessly. He launched a campaign for sheriff of Pima County and claimed victory. He evolved into the authoritative leader, overseeing a massive agency policing 9,000 square miles of vast southern Arizona desert. When the most prolific national abduction crisis erupted inside his territory, he aggressively claimed the microphone at every available camera. Yet, before Tucson, El Paso existed. Throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, Chris Nanos patrolled the streets as a commissioned officer inside the El Paso Police Department in Texas. Everyone knows this chapter. He proudly lists it on his professional credentials, featuring it prominently across his official biography. He routinely highlights this patrol experience during broadcast interviews and throughout his lengthy political tenure, managing Pima County. The glaring omission from his portfolio, the dark spot he relentlessly suppressed, actively avoiding it until investigators from the Arizona Republic cornered him. involves the abrupt conclusion of his El Paso PD tenure. Reviewing the official documents unearthed by the Arizona Republic proves Chris Nanos surrendered his El Paso PD badge involuntarily. He failed to fulfill his sworn contract. Refusing to hand over a standard departure notice, he successfully erased 2 heavily documented years from his law enforcement resume. He supposedly just rode into that West Texas sunset. He actually resigned in lieu of termination. Administrators use that exact polite bureaucratic code right before they fire a cop. Supervisors offer one last chance to leave before permanently stamping fired on a record. He walked. But why? But why? Before moving forward, we must examine exactly what that phrase means inside a police agency. Law enforcement agencies document their personnel more aggressively than almost any other American employer. Every complaint, disciplinary action, suspension, and physical altercation generates paperwork. Departments build strict internal affairs review mechanisms. Terminating a cop means their internal documentation has crossed a critical threshold. The institution reached a formal, concrete conclusion. Letting a cop resign never represents an act of mercy. Administrators calculate this move to sever ties while sparing the agency a drawn-out, contested legal fight. The cop leaves. The file remains. Without someone actively pulling files, the public stays totally blind. He actually departed in 1982, yet he listed 1984 as his exit from the El Paso Police Department. He erased 2 full years. Nobody caught this discrepancy during his 4-decade career across Arizona law enforcement. Or maybe they just stayed quiet. What did the file hide? What did the file hide? Let us open that disciplinary record. This involves no isolated error. We are not looking at a momentary lapse from an otherwise clean cop. We are looking at a pattern. Patterns expose true character far better than mere words. Investigative journalists at the Arizona Republic secured these files. They expose multiple infractions during Nanos's tenure, starting with insubordination. Insubordination means flatly refusing to execute orders from superior officers. Police agencies operate strictly on rank and the chain of command. They demand absolute compliance from the bottom up. Insubordination is no minor violation. It strikes the core of operating within a unit. Does it get worse? It gets worse. He faced discipline for excessive force. First, this reveals exactly how Nanos conducted himself out on the streets. Second, remember this critical detail when analyzing his handling of the Guthrie case. It exposes his fundamental relationship with authority and accountability. When supervisors discipline a cop for excessive force, they deliver a formal mandate, demanding the officer change how they apply physical power. You then watch if the cop actually absorbed that warning. Next, supervisors documented a shot fired. Administrators recorded this incident as an entirely separate infraction from the excessive force event. Supervisors gave it a dedicated entry. Next, we find off-duty gambling, another distinct disciplinary matter. He did not gamble as an undercover operative. He committed no minor procedural error. The department deemed his off-duty actions highly severe. They recorded repeated tardiness, documenting it often enough to warrant formal action. Then you hit the most revealing phrase in the entire stack of paperwork. It steps beyond a single event. It defines an entire career trajectory. The findings state, and I quote the official language here, consistent inefficiency. Consistent. That word carries serious weight. You do not earn that label after a rough patch. Supervisors apply that term when tracking a constant pattern over an extended timeline. Someone tracked his failures and actively chose to put them in writing. What finally broke them? What finally broke them? Let us examine the incident that shattered the department's patience. Records state administrators suspended Nanos for 15 days without pay after an encounter where he allegedly injured a robbery suspect during an arrest. 15 days without a single paycheck. That is a massive, life-altering penalty. We are not talking about a quiet reprimand shoved into a dusty personnel file. Half a month of income vanished instantly because a suspect survived an arrest severely injured. Internal affairs could not contain the fallout. This escalated straight to a grand jury. A grand jury reviewed the exact circumstances of that suspect's injuries. though they ultimately declined to hand down an indictment. Consequently, Chris Nanos dodged criminal charges. The case did not result in prosecution. Why does that matter? Because hitting the grand jury threshold signifies the violence reached terrifying levels of potential criminal accountability. It served as a blazing red flag in an already accumulating pattern of misconduct. Combine the evidence. We are talking about proven insubordination, a verified excessive force ruling, off-duty gambling, and chronic tardiness. Add relentless official documents outlining his operational inefficiency and that battered suspect triggering a grand jury probe. What do you have? El Paso commanders meticulously built a termination file against him. In 1982, they finally executed that separation case. He racked up 37 unpaid suspension days across his El Paso Police Department career. But the real deception started the moment he left. Here is the detail that burns into your brain long after the disciplinary file closes. Chris Nanos officially resigned from the El Paso force in 1982, yet his resume claimed 1984, creating a massive 2-year gap. How did that survive scrutiny? For over 40 years, throughout his entire Tucson law enforcement career and his run for sheriff, across countless campaigns, elections, press appearances, and high-stakes interviews, that massive void remained unchallenged, unquestioned, and totally unexplained. Not a single person verified his background. Nobody pulled the original El Paso files. Nobody asked why a man claiming a lifelong public service career, who actively ran on his law enforcement background, who stands at a podium today, representing one of the largest sheriff networks in America, never once mentioned that his final job before Tucson ended with the department showing him the door. According to Newsweek reporting, Nanos started working as a corrections officer for the Puma County Sheriff's Department in 1984. Conveniently, he listed that exact same year as his fabricated El Paso departure. What we know absolutely is that this gap exists. What we know is his personal resume explanation directly contradicts official records from the El Paso Police Department. And what we know is the man operating with this falsified record is the exact same official, telling America week after week that he is definitely closer to solving the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. He commanded those podiums with this dark history trailing him every single time. Would his past finally catch him? Nobody knew a thing until the Arizona Republic approached Nanos for comment. Journalists told him exactly what they found and dropped the official records right in front of him. They gave him the opportunity to explain a 40-year-old gap on his professional resume, leaving him with clear choices. He could have embraced transparency, he could have acknowledged the records and offered proper context. He easily could have said he was young and made mistakes. He could have argued his Tucson record over the subsequent decades simply speaks for itself. The public could evaluate any of those responses, agree or disagree, and simply move on. How did he actually react? He wrote back, quote, "That is your urgent request? You sure you do not want to go back to my high school and ask why I got SWAT from the principal? Good luck with your hit piece." End quote. That was his word-for-word response to a newspaper asking about official employment records. They did not bring him gossip, neighborhood rumors, or someone's subjective opinion. They held official documents proving his resume misrepresents when he left his previous employer and the circumstances driving his exit. He weaponized his response to mock the question and compare a documented law enforcement disciplinary history to school discipline. He ultimately framed a legitimate inquiry based on public records as a malicious hit piece. Remember, this sheriff serves as the definitive public face, searching for an 84-year-old woman abducted from her home in the middle of the night. Yet when professionals at one of Arizona's largest newspapers asked a direct question about his verified professional history, he screamed hit piece and walked away. Someone hid an official employment record in plain sight for 4 decades. The truth never emerged from a voluntary confession, but rather from a forgotten paper trail that finally caught up with a powerful man. After the Arizona Republic published their investigation, the Puma County Sheriff's Department faced an indefensible position regarding 2 missing years in their boss's career. They blinked. Officials finally released a formal statement. They refused to deny the employment records. Nobody challenged the core reporting. Nobody claimed the Arizona Republic got the facts wrong. Instead, they offered an excuse. They blamed the inaccurate dates on the sheriff's resume on, quote, two clerical errors. The original resume stated Chris Nanos left the El Paso Police Department in 1984. Records proved he left in 1982. How do you misplace 2 entire years? That discrepancy involves no transposed digit. That requires no formatting glitch. That represents no copy and paste administrative oversight. 1982 and 1984 represent 2 completely different times. They span a 2-year void. Those official documents confirm the department separated Nanos 2 years earlier than he claimed. If he accurately represented those separation circumstances, he owed the public a serious explanation. But instead of explaining, what did his department do? Administrators quietly changed the document. The department updated the resume. They admitted a second error the Arizona Republic never even caught in their original report. Nanos claimed he earned a promotion to captain in 2009. The actual records showed 2007. 2 separate dates, 2 distinct errors. Administrators quietly corrected both issues. They blamed a 40-year inaccuracy on clerical mistakes, dropped a statement, and simply moved on. Why does a resume matter right now? It matters deeply. It exposes exactly how this specific department handles basic accountability at the highest level. Confronted with hard evidence that dismantled their official account, officials refused to offer transparency. They avoided genuine explanations. They never offered a real acknowledgement. They deployed the bureaucratic equivalent of a typo correction. Watch the pattern closely. If dodging contradictions sounds familiar, you understand exactly how they managed the Guthrie investigation. If you follow this case from the beginning, you already know what happens next. Stay right here. We found a new context you need to see immediately. Every investigative mistake looks completely different when you realize who makes the calls. If you just found this channel for the first time, hit subscribe right now. We investigate every angle using verified facts. We ignore speculation completely. Our next video digs even deeper, because you deserve the full picture. But first, what did Nanos accidentally reveal? He gave us an accidental confession. Listen to another direct quote from Chris Nanos. Framed by the Arizona Republic investigation, this stops sounding like an offhand remark. On February 3, 2026, cameras surrounded him. The pressure began building. Nanos stood at a press conference and stated, quote, "I'm not used to everybody hanging on my words and then trying to hold me accountable for what I say." He deliberately spoke those exact words during a national missing person investigation. Millions watched every briefing. The public parsed every update. Families waited desperately for news about an 84-year-old woman someone took directly from her home. He looked directly into the cameras and admitted accountability feels completely foreign to him. In isolation, observers might excuse that sentence as a clumsy reaction to overwhelming media attention. People often extend that grace. But read the quote again today. Read it after exposing the El Paso records. Read it after finding administrators wrote 1984 over 1982. Read it after officials blamed 2 clerical errors. Read it after he told journalists, quote, "Good luck with your hit piece." That sentence represents no clumsy mistake. That line defines a 40-year operating philosophy. Nobody held Chris Nanos accountable for El Paso. Nobody demanded answers for his missing resume years. And a serious argument exists that nobody holds him. Reporters walked right up to the porch and stared at the victim's blood. He remains accountable for multiple failures that happened on his watch during this investigation. The morning after Nancy Guthrie was officially reported missing, her home became an active crime scene. Investigators found horrific evidence inside bloodstains, a ripped-off doorbell camera, and personal belongings sitting exactly where she left them. Nobody should have casually accessed this area, but according to detailed reporting from multiple major outlets, including the Arizona Republic itself, the initial police response secured that perimeter so poorly that journalists literally walked close enough to Nancy Guthrie's home to spot her blood. They saw her blood on the front porch. On February 5th, when journalists pressed him about it, Nanos admitted the truth. He stated he would have held the crime scene longer if given a do-over. He claimed his team gathered what they considered complete. Securing a crime scene acts as the absolute baseline first step of any criminal investigation before technicians process forensics, before detectives conduct interviews, before press conferences. You lock down the scene. You establish a strict perimeter. You control the evidence. That failed to happen. The sheriff responsible for that specific perimeter was Chris Nanos. Where was he? On one highly specific day of the investigation, while Nancy Guthrie's family issued a desperate public plea, appearing on television to speak directly to her captor, Chris Nanos sat at a college basketball game. Journalists reported this fact. When the story broke, it formed part of a growing, disturbing picture. People make a completely reasonable argument that investigators require rest, and that sheriffs have personal lives. Attending a sporting event does not automatically prove a leader neglects a case. We grant that reality, but optics matter. A sheriff attending a basketball game on the exact same day his victim's family sits on camera, begging for help, creates devastating optics. That visual broadcasts a loud message about priorities, about awareness, and whether the official leading this inquiry fully grasps what this nightmare means to the people whose lives it completely destroyed. The Guthrie family maintains absolute dignity throughout this entire agonizing ordeal. They refuse to publicly attack the investigation. They cooperate entirely. They even offered $1 million of their own private money. Whatever pain they carry in private, they point no fingers. That remarkable restraint does not mean we ignore the hard questions. It just means someone else must ask them. Who handles the critical evidence? During the early weeks of the inquiry, teams recovered DNA evidence from the immediate crime scene and surrounding area. Subsequent reporting confirmed a critical detail. Certain DNA samples proved incredibly complex. Mixed profiles from multiple individuals require highly advanced processing techniques. When facing evidence of that complexity and sensitivity, standard practice points toward one destination: the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia. It holds the technology, the database access, and the expertise built specifically for America's most challenging forensic cases. Nanos completely bypassed Quantico. He shipped the evidence to DNA Labs International, a private facility in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Forensic experts actively monitoring the case publicly and heavily criticized this specific decision. When you handle DNA evidence in an investigation carrying this massive profile, the sudden disappearance of an elderly woman violently abducted from her home, featuring an unidentified suspect, accompanied by ransom notes of uncertain origin, while the entire country watches closely, you absolutely utilize the most capable resource you have. The FBI lab at Quantico serves as the gold standard resource for high-profile federal cases. It features direct access to federal databases and utilizes processing capabilities that private laboratories simply cannot match. Consider what that means practically. Mixed DNA originating from multiple individuals requires a highly specialized level of separation and analysis that demands the best available resources. Investigators most efficiently access the FBI National Genetic Database, CODIS, through federal laboratory channels. If a match actually exists, to identify whoever was inside, a lawman cleared suspects blind and sparked an internal mutiny. We will uncover exactly who broke ranks shortly. But first, understand this. If the suspect's DNA sits in any American database, the fastest path to a match runs right through federal resources. Yet the sheriff chose a completely different route. This choice became another bullet point in a growing catalog of baffling investigative decisions that the viewing public simply could not explain. We must examine one specific moment from those early days. It demands our focus because it strikes at the core of investigative rigor. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos stepped before cameras and made a massive declaration. He publicly stated his team had completely cleared the Guthrie family as suspects. He announced that total clearance before the crime scene DNA results ever came back. Look at that timeline. Not after the lab reports arrived, but before. When you direct a criminal probe, let alone a puzzle this complex, the sequence means everything. Investigators gather the evidence. They process it. They build hard conclusions from those results. The arrow points in one direction. Verified results dictate the conclusions. Broadcasting a clearance before you hold the physical evidence to back it up abandons standard procedure. At best, it is hopelessly premature. And it broadcasts a distinct message, intentional or not. It tells the world that authorities are drawing conclusions based on something entirely outside the hard evidence. To be absolutely fair, the family fully cooperated from day one. The investigation's subsequent physical findings officially cleared them. We are not implying anything else. But the actual timeline announcing that clearance before the lab finished the DNA testing forces a glaring question about how officials managed this operation. What else did they hide? They allegedly hid case files. As we track the mounting questions surrounding Nanos's controversial conduct, one specific claim towers over the rest in sheer severity. Someone accused Nanos of withholding physical evidence from the FBI. He flatly denied it. Speaking directly to KVOA, Tucson's NBC affiliate, he claimed the allegation was purely fiction. Let us draw a sharp line between established facts and rumors right here. Reuters broke the story of this accusation, and the sheriff categorically denied it. We cannot confirm anyone actually withheld evidence. We only possess a reported allegation matched against an official denial. That remains the absolute limit of the verified public record regarding this exact dispute. But step back and look at the broader picture. The private lab decision, the premature clearance, the unsecured crime scene. Even a fiercely denied accusation does not float in an empty void. It lands squarely inside an established, heavily documented pattern of chaotic behavior. And a pattern makes dismissing any individual accusation significantly harder. Who fired the first shot? The union fired it. If these facts spark questions about the evidence, the profile, or the total internet blackout, we built full video breakdowns, tackling every single angle on this channel. Find the links below. Smash that like button if you believe these glaring questions demand loud answers. The harshest criticism against Nanos did not radiate from angry outsiders. It burned from inside his own department. Listen to Sergeant Aaron Cross. He operates as the president of the Pima County Deputies Organization. That union represents the sworn officers working directly under Nanos. Cross delivered a blistering official statement to the New York Post mid-investigation. He claimed Nanos treated the massive search for Nancy Guthrie as a personal ego case. His words. Think about the weight of that. The sworn leader of the sheriff's union. The very man the deputies themselves elected to voice their absolute deepest operational concerns. He accused his commanding officer of filtering a national kidnapping investigation through pure personal ego. That is no outside armchair detective talking. That is a damning verdict from inside the building. Cross kept going. The United Cajun Navy submitted a formal 41-page proposal, offering massive search assistance, detailing thermal drones. They offered 25 specialized canines and heavily coordinated desert grid sweeps. The man running this case hides a massive secret. Officially, Nanos ordered everyone to stand down. Cross publicly fought back, arguing, extra manpower always helps. You have the sheriff blocking outside help and the deputies' union president begging for it. That gap reveals a lot. It shows you exactly how fractured this investigation feels inside, far beyond what the public sees. Throughout this nightmare, Nanos aggressively framed himself as the ultimate authority figure. He sat for interviews. He bragged about closing in and securing hot leads. He detailed exactly how he ran the operation. Every time he hits a microphone, he pitches an implicit argument. Trust me, and trust my department. Trust the process. But the Arizona Republic just dropped a bombshell question that shatters that trust entirely. Why should anyone extend their trust to a man carrying a falsified resume for 40 straight years? When confronted, his only response was dismissing it as a hit piece. So let us ground ourselves back in reality. Are we 39 days into this? Because that resume story is not the actual investigation. It is just the context we must view this entire case through. Nancy Guthrie remains out there, missing. Investigators confirmed this week they are actively examining a busted utility box found just around the corner from her house. They believe that damage links directly to a reported internet blackout on the night of February 1st, an outage that neighbors claim knocked out their home surveillance systems right when she vanished. But the rabbit hole goes much deeper. FBI and Pima County agents canvassed the Catalina foothills on March 5th, asking two highly specific questions. First, did you experience internet disruptions on the night of February 1st? Second, and this specific detail simply has not gotten enough media coverage, did you save any video footage from January 11th? That is 3 full weeks before Nancy vanished. Investigators still refuse to explain publicly why they need footage from that date. But the reality that they requested it, specifically targeting that date, while running a canvass supposedly focused on the February 1st outage, suggests something huge. They likely pinpointed an event from January 11th, tying into the February 1st abduction. We mean potential reconnaissance, potential neighborhood surveillance, and potential suspect movement before the abduction even happened. But someone was watching. A Catalina foothills neighbor named Aldine spoke to Brian Annan on his YouTube channel and detailed an exact match. She recalled seeing a man near Nancy's house weeks before she vanished. He stood out instantly. He wore street clothes, hunched over, keeping his hat pulled low, creeping down the road, staring hard at properties, specifically zeroing in on Nancy's. He simply did not fit. In a neighborhood where strangers are easy to spot, that stands out. She recalled that specific sighting happening right around January 11th, just after her birthday, on the 8th. If true, it confirms what investigators suspected from day one. This was never a random crime. Whoever grabbed Nancy Guthrie came totally prepared. They knew the streets, and they had visited before. They understood modern home security systems perfectly, knowing how to disable or disrupt them upon arrival. They physically removed the doorbell camera. They struck early Sunday morning, knowing her standard church livestream routine guaranteed a 12 to 14-hour head start before anyone reported her missing. How do you catch a ghost? The FBI openly admits their tip line has completely tapered off since that initial surge. The $100,000 federal reward stays active. The family's $1 million reward stays active. Tucson Crime Stoppers piles even more cash on top. The total financial incentive exceeds $1 million, yet nobody has delivered anything actionable enough to trigger an arrest. Mixed DNA from the crime scene failed to return a usable match inside CODIS. Detectives found gloves 2 miles away, tracing them to a restaurant worker with zero connection to the case. That car caught on Ring camera footage near 2:36 in the morning remains totally unidentified, despite investigators reviewing hundreds of thousands of vehicles. A single forgotten object holds a terrifying truth, but it keeps its secrets. The bizarre, universal fit gun holster yields absolutely zero identification. The discarded Walmart backpack offers nothing, just a ghost buyer. The active manhunt stays open. Detectives refuse to quit. The FBI relentlessly drives the operation forward from Phoenix. Forensic teams keep digging, but 39 days is an agonizing eternity, and as time bleeds out, deteriorating evidence ensures the investigation itself becomes the primary subject of scrutiny. Who dropped the ball? We must bluntly call out exactly why this specific manhunt hit a solid brick wall. What stalled it? The catastrophic mishandling of the first 72 hours, the most critical window for any abduction. That means securing biological trace evidence and fresh surveillance. You capture raw eyewitness memories before national media contaminates them. You lock down the physical scene before weather destroys the truth. Every single piece of evidence sits at its most recoverable state during those crucial 3 days. How detectives manage that specific ticking clock dictates the entire future of the case. Squander that vital window, and those vanishing clues disappear forever into the dark. Detectives work around blind spots. Why does this shift intense scrutiny straight onto Chris Nanos? Because earlier this month, an inmate inside the Pima County Jail slammed Nanos and the department with a massive federal lawsuit. We are not claiming this specific legal battle directly ties to the Guthrie investigation. It simply serves as another glaring data point for a sheriff currently drowning in massive controversy. His department faces a relentless barrage of credibility challenges, hitting from external watchdogs, from his own internal ranks, and from the local court system. Now the press circles. A leader can navigate chaos and still be the exact right man. That happens. But what about a man forced out of his previous law enforcement command? A man who deliberately falsified his official resume dates for 40 straight years. A man who brushes off valid questions with the, quote, "good luck with your hit piece," and openly despises accountability. That guy gets no free passes. He must aggressively claw for every ounce of trust. Is he hiding something? Let us be crystal clear. Nobody is accusing Chris Nanos of physically taking Nancy Guthrie. We are not even saying his dark El Paso Police Department history disqualifies him entirely. We are not claiming the Guthrie manhunt failed completely internally from top to bottom. Elite federal agents constantly step in where the local cops stumble. Brilliant forensic specialists and dogged investigators currently work this case safely behind closed doors. They might be inches away from an arrest right now. So, what is the real issue stalling the truth? The issue is the local operations leader built his entire career on a massive lie of omission. He deliberately forged a fake timeline on his official resume. He stayed dead silent for 4 decades regarding the circumstances surrounding his previous badge's exit. He never confessed. A newspaper exposed the deception by aggressively pulling the public records. Confronted with the paper trail, he fired back with pure contempt. How did his department respond? They brushed off a 2-year employment gap as 2 clerical errors. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She battles limited mobility, relies entirely on daily medication, and has vanished for 39 agonizing days. Her desperate family left their lives behind, agonizing in Arizona as they search and wait. Her daughter flew back to her studio in New York just long enough to hug her grieving co-workers before rushing straight back to Arizona. That is where the boots hit the ground, and that is where answers must surface. The glaring question nobody in the Tucson political or law enforcement, the machine dares to ask out loud is exactly what the public has been circling for weeks. Look at the catastrophic failures documented under his watch during this exact investigation. The unprotected crime scene, the private lab, the premature clearance, the basketball game, and the terrifying accusation of withholding evidence. A falsified document sat hidden for 4 decades. The Arizona Republic finally pulled it into the light. Knowing his history before Tucson, is Chris Nanos the right person running this case? Does anyone holding actual authority in Arizona, whether inside the governor's office, the FBI command chain, or the Puma County Board of Supervisors, seriously ask this behind closed doors? And if they refuse to ask publicly, why? Because the officials holding power remain completely silent. Out of pure dignity and strategic necessity, the family refuses to attack directly. Nanos treats public scrutiny like an insult, proving through his responses that accountability is an obligation meant for everyone else. But accountability compounds rapidly every week without an arrest. Every piece of evidence carrying a question mark in its chain of custody. Every crime scene decision a forensic expert reviews only to state protocol was broken. Each misstep writes a direct answer, begging one unavoidable question. What happens when the mistakes form a pattern? Watch how these 39 days unfolded, across every press conference, through every empty tip line update, every false promise about closing in, and every clerical error. Watch every deflection about hit pieces, and you realize this operation failed on more than technical merits. It exposes a character failure sitting at the absolute top of the command chain. El Paso records fully documented this exact flaw back in 1982. He maintained that same record ever since. Yet, Nancy Guthrie's family shows total grace. They refuse to wage a public war against investigators. Instead, they work inside the system, offering personal resources, making direct pleas, posting rewards, and keeping citizens engaged. They earned the right to see those efforts, backed by investigative leadership lacking a 40-year-old falsified resume buried in its past. They deserve far better than, "good luck with your hit piece." We hunt facts. If you follow this channel, you know we never run from hard questions. People hold countless theories about who abducted Nancy Guthrie and exactly why. We will systematically test every single one. We will analyze the internet blackout angle, the suspect profile, and the ransom note forensics. We will examine the January 11th question and probe the Wi-Fi jammer theory. But before touching theories, we had to expose the foundation, because a compromised foundation dictates the entire investigation. The leader matters. The documented secrets in their past matter. Paper trails never lie. If this video exposed a new fact, if the El Paso records, the disciplinary file, or the resignation versus the resume shocked you, share this upload. The Guthrie family only gets answers if the public asks the right questions loudly enough that authorities cannot ignore them. Tell me in the comments below what detail in Nanos's record damages this case most. We read every single one. If you remain unsubscribed, subscribe right now and turn notifications on. Our next video plunges straight into the physical evidence and the surveillance blackout. We map out what a verified, credible path to solving this crime actually looks like today. Nancy Guthrie earned that truth. Her family demands justice, and the answer waits out there.